All right, so boom.
Great. Where did you get that FAFO next to your name? What the hell is that?
Oh, this other Discord that I'm, a gaming joint. So you
Okay.
could pick a thing or whatever. Cause I seen Shorty had the LUMI thing or whatever. I was like, well, I want a thing there.
Oh my.
Until obviously our shit level up to where we can put a thing to where it'll represent us, and then other people could have that next to their name, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll build up to it. You supposed to, you the young nigga. You supposed to know how to do it. Let me say,
No, I don't know. Nigga, shut up.
or what it mean.
Oh
But
look, we got Carrie face. Y'all better tap in on the
yeah,
recording.
good. We got some black men in here too. All right,
Right,
so
exactly.
Carrie, face. We recording live. I'm about to kind of break down this presentation just on documented systemic racism, showing the relationship between incarceration and slavery, right? Um, but before I even go into the actual slide, I was just gonna preface it with during slavery, white people were they were the 99.9% of motherfuckers in anybody prison. You get what I'm saying? Because why? Because the slaves were busy fucking working.
Right.
It defeated the purpose. Why is any kind of slave going to be in a jail? You know what I mean? Even if they did attack the master or whatever, 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 they was going to get whooped to death
Yeah, they
damn
need
near.
them. They need them still working. They gonna beat you, and
Exactly.
then you got to go back to work.
And this is a heavy point that must be stressed. White people were the only people in U.S. prisons. There might have been some random one-off other, but all of the niggas was busy working, just to say it raw. So 1865 motherfuckers got free, and from there, these devils was like on by hook or crook, because they didn't respect even Lincoln. A lot of the motherfuckers in the South was mad at Lincoln that he even freed motherfuckers. So they were trying to loophole to death to get niggas back into slavery. So some other shit that they tried to claim was a myth is actually fact. The 13th Amendment has a loophole that says if you get arrested or you are incarcerated, you are a fucking slave again. Now, niggas, as many jail movies as people have seen in their life, everybody hears that famous phrase, you don't have a name, you a number now, which is why niggas have the jail tattoo with their prison number on there. You know what I'm saying? They literally are stripping you of being a person in society when you enter prison. You are now a fucking slave. So all of that shit is gonna be touched on and really giving explanations to why this and why that. So with that said, I'm about to go on ahead and we'll jump in. Like I said, on each slide, feel free. If it makes sense, it makes sense. But if there's questions, feel free. So the very first step one, slave patrols. Everybody heard of runaway slaves. When a slave was like, man, fuck this shit. I'm out of here, nigga. The slave patrols were the devils that would go, and their job was to find these runaway slaves and bring them back so that they can keep working. So as you see, slave patrols started as early as the 1700s over here. They first organized. This was the first organized policing in the colonies, which focused on controlling enslaved Africans. Even though to get away from that verbiage, to get away from our ancestors who were enslaved. The duties of these slave patrols were to capture runaways, punish them, and even intimidate other, blacks on the plantation so that they wouldn't even get it in their mind to try to run away. You know what I'm saying? And then the legal basis, the actual shit that's on the books, you had the slave codes and you had another thing called the Fugitive Slave Act, or acts plural. So we'll move on to the next joint. Then, of course, you got the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793. So this one, low key, might have created Karens. So as crazy as that sound, or as simple as that sounds, this act went a step further. So you already had the white people that were assigned as official slave catchers, but then this act empowered the everyday devil to basically help capture any runaway slaves that they seen out and about. You know what I mean? So, as it says, allow capture of escaped enslaved people anywhere in the United States. No right to testify or due process, because once again, the ancestors were classified as 3/5 of a human. We didn't have the rights, quote unquote, that these devils and everybody else had from a legal standpoint. And the most important part, tying to the Karen shit, it empowered white citizens to detain black people. So not only detain, the sub of that is it empowered them to, I guess, what am I trying to say, Bria? To feel that they can order niggas around or kind
Yeah,
of
that
have
they
they
can
way
be.
with niggas.
Yeah, yeah, they could do whatever they sees necessary because you know there's nobody who was gonna stop them. They were
Exactly.
encouraging it.
Exactly. So to jump to modern day, when a nigga come into some subdivision, probably to fuck with some, little white joint here in the neighborhood that he quote unquote shouldn't be at, you have this behavior of the white people being empowered. They stopping you first. Well, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Who are you
Well,
here to
yeah, isn't that
see?
what
Why
Neighborhood
this?
Watch
What
came
that?
from?
You're here to see Susie, but do you really know Susie? Like all of that shit stems from this Fugitive Slave Act. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but isn't that where Neighborhood Watch comes from too? Like it was really for black
In a
people?
sense, um, even though that it's hard, yeah, you correct, but it becomes more so by the time we get to the sundown town situation.
Okay, okay.
But you on the right motherfucking path. So we're gonna keep this thing moving. Then you had the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which this strengthened federal enforcement. It provided, when I mean federal enforcement, from a federal level, they was also like, yeah, if a slave escaped, the troops or whoever at that federal authority level would also probably help in the hunting down and capture of a slave. You know what I'm saying? It also gave penalties to white people for assisting escapees. You know what I mean? I should have just, edited that shit to put in word for word, because clearly at this juncture in time, the majority of the people who might have helped was really the crackers.
Right. They were
White
trying to.
people, so-called natives, and free black people, depending on the territory. So as I kind of told y'all, like everywhere in the United States was sort of different scenarios. Slavery was heavy more in the South, and the South might have started really from like Virginia on down. Like you had slavery in the northern states, PA going up, but it wasn't as heavy as it was down here. You know what I mean? You might have had a couple of little situations, plantations scattered here and there, pardon me, but in the cities, and then like it, or what you would call a city for those times, like I said, it was probably more shipbuilding, more industrial shit going on. So you really, yeah, it really wasn't really no need for slavery on that level, unless you was some rich devil that, had some, black servants type shit. But other than that, the majority of the shit was kind of really. But anyway, the federal government was providing enforcement and helping catch runaway slaves. There were penalties. And then, of course, this led to the widespread kidnapping of free black Americans. Because the other part that's not shown here in this, joint, there were fucking rewards. You know what I mean? You gotta think about that shit. So if, fucking
Yeah, white
Billy.
people just felt like the best citizens in America. Like, oh, I helped catch, a black fugitive or whatever the
Yeah,
hell,
yeah, that
runaway.
was one level, but the unspoken level, there was goddamn cash rewards. You know what I mean? If you caught
Oh
so and
yeah, yeah, they
so,
wasn't doing nothing for free.
exactly, like shit, they start grabbing up any nigga that they seen. Once again, this goes back to the other American shit that's ingrained racially. Any nigga will do. That applies in all time periods of America. So, you know what I mean? Face might have been the runaway nigga. He escaped from Georgia, and word has gotten out as far north as Baltimore, and Kerry's like he's strolling around minding his business in Baltimore, but some devils up there might think that he's Face who escaped from down there and he's now in their city. Grab him. That's the nigga right there. Cause any nigga will do.
Right, basically. And they still think all black people look alike.
Exactly. So, there's that, right? So now we're gonna keep this thing moving to the next joint. So now we at post Civil War black codes. These were laws that criminalized everyday behavior of newly freed black people. These included vagrancy laws used to arrest and force labor, via convict leasing, which we'll get a little bit more in depth to in a couple more slides. It was used to police, enforced to maintain racial hierarchy because, what I mean, from the devil point of view, we gotta stay on these niggas' necks just because they free. We don't want them getting too high and mighty, too quote unquote uppity. You know what I'm saying? Thinking that they actually are equals and shit. So these are laws that basically legalize harassment, torture, harm, and even murder of our people. But anyway, we're gonna keep this shit moving. So here I just wanted to highlight the overlap and the interwoven relationship of the Ku Klux Klan and law enforcement. Many officers and officials, from a town official, city official standpoint, were Klan members. Violence that was used to enforce white supremacy. For the reason I just mentioned before, we don't want these niggas getting too uppity. They think just because they free, they might think shit's sweet. We gotta stay on their ass so they never think shit is sweet, basically. And then almost zero prosecutions were handed out to any whites due to law enforcement participation in a lot of these cross burnings, lynchings, or just outright murders and other ways. There's shit documented on the books and plenty of cases where, say somebody was accused of something. The regular police would come and put that black person in the town jail, but then the white mob would be like, no, let that nigga out because we about to hang him right now. And police members that were part of the precinct or the office, even if the head police chief might have been a semi righteous type of devil, Like, nah, we can't do it. We gotta send him, to court through the regular system. The other niggas that worked for him was like, fuck that. They opened the cell and would let that nigga out to be hung right in front of the jail. So the other shit that you see in this slide are just, it's kind of just little screenshots. It's just some random documentation, as it says, white supremacist infiltration of law enforcement, dated October 17th, 2006. I think I pointed out to y'all before that not only did Obama conduct an investigation on this same subject, George W. Bush also led his own internal investigation into nationwide law enforcement being infiltrated by Ku Klux Klan and other white nationalist groups. So you have a Democrat knowing and investigating the shit just like a Democrat president. They both understood that the shit was real out here. One of them had Homeland, Department of Homeland do the investigation. The other one had FBI. So, and the threat is still there. But anyway, we're gonna keep the shit moving. Jim Crow. So, I'm sure everybody done heard of Jim Crow. Jim Crow was just another era of harassment and just making life in general kind of bad for newly freed blacks. You know what I'm saying? So as you see here, the bullet points touch on this enforce created and enforce segregation laws, by the police. Our ancestors were arrested for minor offenses such as loitering, as you see here, talking back, like literally, Bree, like to talk back to a devil, and I gotta call them devils because that's what they are, to do all this shit, which
Right.
is documented year by year, era by era. You know what I'm saying? And you can look it up on any city, state, or federal, database to see these actual laws. And there's many more that I ain't even touch on. But if you even looked a white person in the eye while they were talking to you, that might have been reason enough to be arrested or even lynched. You know what I'm saying? So just like even talking back to a white person, I told you to get, boy, that type of shit, and you be like, nigga, I ain't going nowhere. Oh, grab that nigga, arrest that nigga. Fuck think he is talking back to me. That type of shit. This is how out of control these devils were then, and this is why, you know, um, this is just another reason why they devils. You know what I'm saying? So police tolerated and participated in lynchings. You know what I mean? This is more of the same shit, but just under a new name, or of bullshit that they subjected the ancestors to. So
Right. Yeah. They just sick, man. I mean, at the end of the day, um, I don't think that they realize just still from that these times that you're talking about how it's still like that today,
oh
just
yeah,
not maybe at that extreme, of course, but
yo yeah, it's definitely still like that. So as we get closer and you see the connection really become more solid, you're gonna be like, yo, this shit crazy. So now this phrase that I mentioned a couple of slides back, convict leasing. This was a loophole. So basically, just to read this shit word for word, convict leasing was a system of forced penal labor that was practiced in the southern United States where private individuals and corporations could lease labor from the state in the form of incarcerated people, nearly all of whom were black. So when you think of the railroads, when you think of roads being built or buildings being built, niggas being forced back onto the very plantations that from this time point 10, 20 years ago that they just was working as slaves on, they back now working on them same plantations because they done through some bullshit fuckery called these various laws where everything was criminalized that we did. You might have looked the white man in the eye when he was talking to you or talk back, you know what I mean? And now you're arrested, and because you've been arrested, now they put your ass back on that very same plantation. So if you've seen the movie Sinners, which I know you have, if you remember, there was a scene where they drove past some of them guys working in the
Yeah, they were
ditch.
in the cotton. Yeah,
Yeah,
they were
yeah,
in the fields. Yeah.
exactly. And then dude told his boys to keep their head up while they were digging, and then the white dude fired off the shotgun. Those were those were that was a perfect example. Those brothers were convict leasing. They were part of that
Mm.
system right there. So we're gonna go into the next little part of this. So this system was expanded throughout most of the South, with the emancipation of enslaved people at the end of the Civil War in 1865. As a result, other forms of prison labor remain legal in the United States under the 13th Amendment's Penal Exception Clause, the motherfucking loophole. All blacks shall be freed unless incarcerated. So, with that saying, not only you, but those who are watching the video, especially young, older people who didn't put the shit together, when you wonder why there's such a high incarceration rate of black men in America, it's not by the accident. This shit is by design, and the shit has been implemented literally since 1865 when niggas first got free, so that they can low key maintain a slavery situation, even though it was abolished almost at this point, damn near what, 150 years ago plus.
Yeah, facts. That's why a lot, and they didn't allow slaves to read, so a lot of slaves didn't know for like 5 whole years.
So going further, the system was highly lucrative for not only the lessees and state governments. So it says for as an example, in 1898, 73% of Alabama's annual state revenue came from convict leasing, while contractors were able to lease people at costs as low as $9 a month per person. You can have your own slave
Oh,
for
that's
as little
crazy!
as
Wow.
$9 a month. Let that shit sink in. This is almost maybe 25 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And you see there's even like a little couple of kids. This is definitely a kid, whoever he is. He even looked like a little, oh, pardon me, teenager. All right, so now to kind of go further, um, so once again, the legal loophole was the 13th Amendment. It abolished slavery except as a punishment for crime. That got to be said 1,000 times until it sink in. After the Civil War, laws criminalized vagrancy and unemployment. Now think about that. They created laws that criminalize vagrancy. Vagrancy is basically, I think, at least from my definition, just being out, hanging out, being out on the block type of shit. At least from a hood perspective, you just out there loitering because you ain't got nowhere to go. You got a bunch of people that were working for free that were not given jobs after being released from slavery. Of course, there's gonna be niggas with nowhere to go. May not even have a house because you ain't had no bread. You've been working free. You know what I mean? You gotta put this shit together, yo. It's like a setup from the jump.
It's a setup. Yeah, it's a setup. They knew how the hell am I gonna have a house? I was just working for y'all niggas for 50
Free.
years
Yeah,
for
exactly.
free.
And I ain't got a job because
'Cause I can't
my
get
job was
hired.
working for free.
Right.
And
Yeah,
devils,
and Devil's not hiring me.
exactly. So now, well, you don't have a job, you don't have no place to go, so we're gonna arrest you and put you back into slavery. Boy, these devils, and this is why I have no love for these motherfuckers, especially the ones that come talking that dumb shit when the information right here is in black and white telling you why and how it was. All right, so then, once again, the state governments would lease these prisoners to private corporations. And that's the other part that I felt that I slacked on this presentation. I should have pulled up a list of corporations that were also involved with this shit, but that'll be in part two. But anyway, these companies, had motherfuckers working plantations, in the mines, and railroads. So we're gonna keep the shit moving. So once again, the connection of newly freed blacks who have been criminalized in every aspect of their life, of course, that's going to lead to what we see here, the rise of mass incarceration. Jim Crow law enforcement evolved to enforce segregation, creating a policing dynamic which led to intense surveillance in black communities from the jump. By the mid 20th century, there was a shift from explicitly racist laws to tough on crime policies, aka war on drugs, that disproportionately targeted black men. This era exploded the prison population, transforming incarceration into a primary method of social control and free fucking labor. Because now all of those brothers and sisters are now slaves again, as they clearly told you by the 13th Amendment. We got to touch on the preschool to prison pipeline, which criminalized the youth. So at this point, you got preschools adopted strict disciplinary policies that punished, minor infractions with suspension or expulsion rather than counseling. You know what I'm saying? So this is at the school level. The presence of school resource officers often led to students being arrested for behavior that was once handled by teachers. Black students are statistically more likely to be disciplined, pushing them out of the classroom and directly into the juvenile justice system. So, this is another angle of attack.
Exactly. I got no job. I got no home. I can probably barely read and write. And I'm trying to like start a life. And, it's probably you're setting me up for failure. Like
Yeah,
it ain't no, you know what I mean?
no, definitely. So,
Best thing I could do is commit crime.
the next part, even though we kind of jump ahead in the timeline, privatized prisons, which completes the whole cycle of the prison, from convict leasing, preschool to prison pipeline, and then you have the privatized prisons. So basically, modern prisons operate on contracts that require guaranteed occupancy rates, meaning the state of whatever the fuck, the state of New York requires that there be at least 800. I don't know. Well, I ain't gonna say 800. That's crazy. Maybe 20,000 people to be in this prison, or else that prison can charge the state of New York fines because there's not enough people in this prison, which is already crazy in itself. But then that incentivizes mass incarceration. So now because the state is under pressure to find bodies to put in these prisons, that affects how police departments in New York, which I'm just using as an example, to go about their police business. Fuck solving crimes that need to be solved. Any nigga you see, I don't care if he's smoking a blunt, just grab him up, arrest that nigga. We need bodies to be in these prisons. Fuck the white axe murderer that's on the tear. Fuck the white pedophiles. Grab a nigga that done stole something from CVS. We need that nigga up in one of them prisons.
Right.
So just as with convict leasing sold labor, privatized prisons sell detention services, turning inmates into revenue streams. From 1865 to today, the legal system has consistently, historically adapted to maintain economic and social control over black Americans through confinement. So now on next, so now we're gonna pivot back to the timeline that I kind of took us off a little bit, but I wanted to just really give the end case in the end convict leasing to private prisons. So back around from the 1910s to the 1930s, you had early FBI surveillance. So even now at the federal level, they on a nigga ass. You know what I mean? It's bad enough niggas is being harassed by the local devil police in your town or your county or even your state. Now you got the FBI fucking with us. The Bureau of Investigation monitored black activists. So around this time, around this time frame, you got, individuals such as maybe a Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, that were kind of like key targets. And, organizations such as the UNIA that were seen as threats. So it also highlights that there was an early file system built around black political movements. So they start keeping files on niggas. All right, we're gonna keep this thing
Yeah, they
moving.
didn't want to see black people progress by any means because
Oh,
they
exactly.
they know what it is. They know if they gave black people the same reins as them back in the day, what baby?
Yeah, if motherfuckers unified and start really making, boss
Yeah,
calculated
man. See, that's what
moves.
be getting me. That I be agreeing with, Kanye crazy ass a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not to say it in that same way because he did kind of say it insensitive, but I just wish, like, yeah, because black people are just so powerful,
Yeah, no,
but
no,
they know that.
yeah, we are, and that's why. And see, that's the other thing. If motherfuckers was so feeble and mentally inferior and all of that shit that they be, try to say, especially them racist devils in the comments of anything, there would be no need to create all these laws against us. You
No,
know,
exactly. And I hate that we were so, obviously they didn't know no better. Nobody knew any better. Even like you say to this day, kind of just still being programmed, obviously to not the same extent, but it's like, if you don't know no better, you can't do no better. So
exactly.
it's like
No, that's
at
a
the end of the
fact.
day, they didn't even, I say that obviously I do agree with Kanye and what he was saying, but I also know on the other hand that it was it's obviously was a lot harder than to just come together when you scared as hell, like, because you never want to go back to that which you had to go through,
So
like.
there were also laws, slave laws, where that applied not only to enslaved but to freedmen or free black people, where they could like it was illegal for more than I think 4 or 5 niggas to gather in public. Dead ass. They would get nervous. These devils would get nervous, like, oh, these niggas is about to try to tear some shit up. Break it up, and then niggas would have to disperse. Like dead ass. So shit like that, I'm here getting my little wasabi shit mixed in with this soy sauce. Got this sashimi, but I ain't gonna eat on camera yet. I'm gonna thug it out until the end. All right, so we're gonna move to this next shit. Now we move into the time period of the 1950s to 1970. So this is the COINTELPRO era. So during this time, this was a FBI program that targeted black leaders such as MLK, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, had them under intense surveillance. Other tactics that the FBI used was infiltration. They would send false letters, basically claiming to be from like another black organization or even claiming to be from members in the same organization. That's like, niggas sending you a letter, Bree, claiming to be from me, talking wild crazy, and then you get the letter. You're like, what? That nigga Drake said, what, man? Fuck that nigga. Like, dead ass. That's the type of shit these devils were on.
Damn. They were plotting like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow.
Harassment, criminal framing, and all that shit. These devils literally earned the title of devil. Um, so then you have from 1970 going into the 1990s, the war on drugs. So a lot of people may think or associate that phrase war on drugs with Bill Clinton or maybe with even George Bush, but it was really Nixon, Richard Nixon, one of the presidents from the 70s, that these policies kind of kicked off under. And obviously, these policies disproportionately targeted black communities. There were mandatory minimums, such as, the crack cocaine laws and all that shit. Like, and then the police were a little bit more militarized during that time, or they became more militarized slowly, piece by piece. So they keep this thing moving. Now, this is what we was touching on before that you mentioned stop and frisk. So now we definitely coming from the 90s closer towards maybe the 2000s. Whenever they finally deaded it. When did they dead that shit finally? In the 2010s or in the early 2000s?
No, I thought early 2000s.
Okay, probably it was around there. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it was like I thought it was like 20. Well, no, you could still consider it the 2010s.
Because I want to say it was definitely, I think, during the time that Obama was in there that they had finally deaded that shit.
Let me see. Oh, damn, this says January, no way, January 2014?
That sound about right. Because Obama was in still, I think.
Oh,
Wasn't
wow. I thought it was like at least,
he?
yeah,
Yeah.
2014.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, that make perfect sense. So during the stop and frisk era and what they call broken windows policing, these were just two negative styles of policing that clearly had further negative impacts on how black people were treated.
That's crazy.
So, like it says, it concentrated policing on black neighborhoods. You have mass street level surveillance and searches, and proven racial disparities in who they stopped and who they would arrest. Uh, arrest. I'm here thinking of the word frisk. But anyway, now to come a little bit closer to modern day, we got modern FBI gang and RICO strategies that are being implemented against the black community on a whole. So you got focus on black neighborhoods and youth groups. You got critics who argue that the RICO is used as a dragnet, and then rap lyrics and culture are being used as evidence in investigations. So we'll tap into that and more in depth in my other series that I got coming at y'all. You know what I mean? The how to know if you're under federal investigation, 10 signs that you are under federal surveillance, and many more. They come in, you know what I mean? But anyway, let's go into the next one. And then, of course, police violence data, basically kind of just showed collectively from the 90s leading up to the present, black Americans were disproportionately killed during police encounters. Pardon me. The police officers who committed these crimes against our people had very low prosecution rates, and federal attempts at reform were very limited. I'm going to say there was no reform whatsoever. But we'll just conclude and wrap this shit up. In a nutshell, law enforcement systems have historically been designed to control black Americans. Many of these laws evolved out of slavery, but the patterns persist, and reform requires addressing structural roots or structural systemic racism. So until all of that is, really put out there in the forefront, shit ain't changing no time soon. You know what I'm saying? But that's all I got for y'all today. You know, we'll
Appreciate you
and if y'all,
sharing your knowledge.
if y'all appreciated that, then y'all could catch us on the next one, which I might hit y'all with next. 10 signs that you are under federal surveillance.